Hey everybody, you have a few minutes to join me here. So a few minutes, I want to talk about the annual Sun-Saturn conjunction, which happens in Pisces this year. Makes it a bit more complex. Anytime anything happens in Pisces, things are going to be a bit more complex. Hey Kayla, what's up? So with Sun-Saturn conjunctions, and we get this every year, there's like a pulling back or a reining in when it comes to like the current state of things. Whoa, you're selling your house. I'll have to catch up with you. Yeah, you should come down and visit. I'm getting quite a bit done around here. My uncle's putting in the bathroom and some other exciting projects. So yeah, I'll be much more able to handle guests. I got this handy dandy thing. Look, it's for an old woman. It's a giant lighted sewing magnifying glass. I can probably also use to read your comments. This is what I'm working on today. So, yeah, Kayla, summer's gonna be super, super fun. Show up. So when we have this particular conjunction, you get this every year. The opposition also brings consequential legal decisions, judgments. A lot of the times, the results of the conjunction. So today, we are all under the influence of Sun-Saturn. Talking about the Sun-Saturn conjunction today, Ellie. This makes us more serious. Makes us think about what do we need to circle back to, because we either need to recommit ourselves to it, finish it. Hey, Helen. And sometimes this is the time where we untether ourselves from something if we realize it isn't our responsibility. So in the air, like in the world, transit-wise, for everybody, it brings this sobering couple of days where we have a collective, wait, what? Moment. So it's a sobering effect. It's where the rubber meets the road, or where we have a steaming dose of reality right in our face. We don't like Saturn for that reason. We love Jupiter and Neptune because they bring optimism and the ability to look away or deny something. You can't do that with Saturn. Yes, Ellie, that's a good point. Reality in Pisces, she says. Well, this is the breakdown of the apparent reality. And if you're sensitive to it and in alignment with divine guidance rather than with segregating or dividing energies, because Pisces is the whole. It's the collective. It's the completion. It's the everything in the one. So if you are embracing the individuation process, and you're taking responsibility for yourself, your decisions, your actions, the course of your life, you're not deferring, you're not deflecting, you're not blaming, because that's the symptom of immaturity and a victim mindset. If you're really choosing for yourself, and you're choosing well, you're choosing what is life affirming, what's good for you, because it's also good for others. Saturn always rewards us. We always get good things. If we're deflecting, we have more work to do, because we are entering a cycle of taking better responsibility, being able to bear more weight. And we only grow through failure when Saturn's around. So it's very hard to see what is real or what's true or what's actual with Saturn in Pisces. And it's becoming more, it's getting worse with Saturn nearing that conjunction to Neptune at the very last degrees in Pisces, the end of an era. And then conjunct again at that 0 degree point in Aries. We haven't seen this in quite some time. So that collective breakdown, it's a collective sickness. It comes to a peak. And Saturn comes into Pisces and then comes to a peak like we have not seen when we have Saturn and Neptune coming together. Yeah, it is crazy time. It's collective delusion. It's insanity. Insanity is extremely contagious. Peace can also be contagious. But when you have that Saturn-Neptune thing, any Saturn-Neptune aspects, the hard aspects in the natal chart, yeah, you feel like a nut. Because we have the typical boundaries of the mind, what we think we know, opened up. So our mind is like a colander. And we have all these holes punctured in what we thought was solid, or what we thought was the boundary, what we thought we knew through empirical evidence, because we have experienced it ourselves. There's more. And so as we make room for that, as we align the material with the cosmic or with the spiritual, it is incredibly uncomfortable. And And it does melt down the structures and the boundaries, the pathways, the facts that you're used to having. Well, I'm talking about personally, Kayla, but collectively, yes, we are all in a state of collective psychosis. Now, if you understand Neptune, if you're on the clear side of Neptune, you're not on the delusional escapist side of Neptune, and even if you are, you'll think you're on the clear side. You only know you're on the clear side when you're really on the clear side. You only think you are when you're not. And you only get there once you've gone through or are pretty far along the individuation process. Because the nature of being in a cult, and this is what Neptune is teaching us, and what Saturn is teaching us, going through Pisces and coming to that conjunction to Neptune, the nature of being in a cult is that you don't know that you're in one while you're in one, or else you wouldn't be in it. You only know once you're out of it and you have some perspective. And I will say that all religions are cults and that all political parties are cults. That's my opinion. And that doesn't mean that they are necessarily dangerous or out to get you in some way, but they are all cults because they are all of a collectively motivated mindset. So what the cults say about each other right now is exactly the same things. They say the same things about each other. And it's a huge distraction to get caught up in the identification of teams. And collectively, when we have this conjunction, we also have the collective coffers being robbed. And so we have a realignment in our institutions. It's a meltdown collectively in institutions and what you can believe in. And a redefinition of what those things are, what the bones are. Saturn's the bones. And the bones are disintegrating collectively. Saturn is the skeletal structure within us and without us. So you need to get really clear about your own personal authentic expression. If you haven't dealt with your shadow side or with your trauma, then you can't see through the fog of Neptune. Neptune is a veil, and there is a fog that descends for some and a veil that lifts for others. So today we have the Sun-Saturn conjunction. In a few days, we'll have the Sun-Neptune conjunction. So we have this sobering, wait, what? Moment. That we take stock of where we are. There is a contraction, market contraction. Hope, contraction, collectively. And, we look at the actual. Now, when we have the Sun conjunct to Neptune, there is a confusion that descends. And you don't know what's what. So it is going to bring a peak in collective delusion. And victim stories. Reasons why we can't accomplish. That all rises to the surface. And this also challenges our vitality, our health. Today also with Sun conjunct Saturn, this is not a day where collectively we are out hauling big rocks and big weight. We're more fragile. And we're more careful with where we put our feet and what we do. So think about, what is your responsibility? What is your weight today? Because if you're not being intentional about what it is that you're responsible for, if you're either shirking that or not accepting it, in a few days when Sun comes to Neptune, this starts a new cycle of furthering personal expression or personal escapism. If we're not in a good place, we're going to be going towards escapism. If we are shouldering correct responsibility, and we're not taking on others' responsibilities, we're not carrying other people's karma, because that's the way we lie to ourselves and tell ourselves we're better than we are. That's codependent behavior. Don't do other people's work for them. It weakens them. So you can tell yourself that you're better than you are. You're a savior of some kind, and they get to owe you too. Don't do other people's work for them or carry their karma. Don't save people from the best lessons that they could have. And that was something my teacher told me really early on. Don't fix every problem, sometimes even if you can. Don't fix every problem that someone brings to you. Sometimes you have to let people work it out, because you could be saving them from the best lesson they ever had. So sometimes you have to teach people to fish rather than catch the fish for them. Even if they resist that and they don't like us, we have to have the wherewithal, the strength to withstand people's negative opinions so that we can do what's in their best interest. We don't get that as empaths. It can be harmony at all costs. That's not good for anybody. Conflict works. We don't want to be in conflict all the time. Well, we do have to have, we do have to have times where we get things straight. And when you're in relationships that aren't karmic, when you've worked out your crap, when you've healed, when you're in relationships that are in a framework of compassionate non-attachment, conflict is extremely rare. And when it does happen, it's quick, it's constructive, and it's a very fast rupture and repair. That contributes immediately to the strength of the relationship. So we don't even enter into a power struggle phase when we're in relationships where we enter healed. When we're unhealed, we will go through the typical 7 stages of the relationship. Initial rattle and sabers, infatuation stage, power struggle stage, on and on and on. But when you come in healed, there aren't any weeds that you have to get through to get to the good stuff. You start out with the good stuff, and it keeps getting better as you go along. It sounds like a fairy tale. It's Neptune, but it's the real side of Neptune that you only get to through hard work. You only get to that point through going through the individuation process. You have to go through Saturn to get to Neptune. You have to have good boundaries, self-respect. You have to be real. You have to have dealt with your trauma. You have to have become realized. You have to have self-awareness. You have gone through a very humiliating process of life review and really understanding why you do what you do and seeing yourself through others' eyes. Deep repentance. So when we come to that place of really owning ourselves and taking real responsibility for who we are and what we do, then we can come into relationships that aren't for the reason of healing. We aren't working ourselves out. We've worked all of that out before we started in with each other. We're going to see more and more of that as we have more alchemical relationships developing with Pluto going through Aquarius. Hey, Immaculate. Thank you. But use this day wisely. Really take stock of what do you owe yourself? What do you owe others? What is your responsibility? What are you taking responsibility for that isn't your business? How might you be weakening another? And what are you shirking? What are you trying to get out of? And what are you getting away with because you can? This is a big part of the individuation process. This is a big part of Saturn conjunct Neptune coming up here. What do we do when no one's looking? Do you get away with what you can get away with? That means you have an entitlement problem. To have real self-respect, truly, 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 truly have it. It means that you do what you claim to do even when no one's looking. Because you're looking. Because you know. See, if we know, if we are really confident in ourselves, if we know we can count on ourselves, we can rely on ourselves, that's where security is. We know we're not going to screw ourselves. When I was in my codependency days, before I went through my Saturn score in my mid-30s, I hated it when someone would ask me for something, because I knew that I was going to have to say yes, even if I didn't want to, because I couldn't stand the guilt. And people could play me too. I have that old Venus-Neptune trine, right? Just a good sob story. Get the heartstrings going. I had to get tough as I got older and learn to say no, learn to let people struggle. When I saw that it was really good for them, don't just say yes to avoid guilt. And I hated that feeling of someone complaining or someone lacking something or someone needing something, because I knew I was going to screw myself again. I don't want to say yes. I don't want to help them. But I would anyway, because I was an angry, nice person, like most empaths are, that are unhealed. We say yes when we don't want to. And we say no when we don't want to. Because we're not honest. You have to get through your trauma before you're really able to stand up for what you really want. And you say yes to the right things and no to the wrong things. You can't keep yourself safe from yourself unless you've healed your trauma. Unless you've healed your triggers. Because we just act in service to those triggers. We just try to keep the band-aids on so we don't melt down or lose our shit or have so much come up at once that we can't go to work that day. Ooh, that Pluto square to my moon, along with that Neptune transit in conjunct to the sun and the moon, which is still going on. That just ripped off all my remaining band-aids. Chiron return. Yeah, that's Saturn square to Saturn. That was the biggest ripper I think I've ever had. It was the initial ripper. But unless we bleed, we can't heal. Healing actually does hurt. It's a painful process. Saturn is ripping off our band-aids today. We'll see what comes out when the Sun comes to conjunct Neptune. I think it's going to be collective pus. We've had a building infection, and it is time to relieve some of that. Pluto in Aquarius is sure going to pave the way for this conjunction of Saturn and Neptune here in Pisces to have a long-term effect. So I think we had a couple of questions. Let me see here. ER. Thank you. Donnie Kim, rupture and repair is so hard. But it does create scar tissue. It makes things stronger. Because unless you do that rupture and repair, things get weaker. You have to keep more and more pressure on keeping things under the surface. Oh, ER, you had the Saturn square Saturn last year. So you're in your mid-30s too. Shine, baby, shine. Having a really tough day. Fell into an autistic shutdown. I can barely speak. That's actually not uncommon for people to feel very much shut down or enclosed or muted or censored when we have Sun-Saturn conjunction or Sun-Saturn hard aspect, especially if that comes into your natal chart. I had that a few days ago. I had Sun when Sun was at 15 degrees, 14 degrees in Pisces just a few days ago. I cried almost all day because it was in conjunct to my natal Saturn. Sun-Saturn aspects are extremely important. They're some of the most consequential days of the year. For me, the most consequential days of the year are like January 4th. July 5th. It's any time that the Sun makes a conjunction, a square, an opposition to my natal Saturn. Those are the days that I get to see how good I'm doing in terms of taking care of myself. We all get this. But sometimes what you see, those are days that they're not necessarily happy days. Because I was really looking at the consequences of distancing myself from somebody that I really, really wanted a relationship with more than anything. I could see it was not coming in. It was not going to happen for me. And really, grieving that. We grieve distance. We grieve separation. We grieve a chasm or a gap when Sun makes difficult aspects to our Saturn. So I guess that's all I have to say. Ryan, can I speak on Sun, Saturn in the 9th house? Also, I have Saturn in the 5th. Squares my sun, my moon in my chart. So Sun and Saturn in the 9th? You mean transiting through the 9th? The Sun transiting through the 9th is a nice month. The 9th house is a fun house. That's expansion. Sharing, we have more connections. The fire houses are nice houses to have transits of the Sun through, or Jupiter. Saturn transiting through your 9th is something that is putting you to work when it comes to higher education or acquiring more broad or complex knowledge. Saturn's putting you to work when in the realm of the higher mind. So we parse out what we really believe. We get better information. It makes the things of the 9th house smaller. The 9th house is usually pretty cluttered because it's our morality. It's what we believe. It's our stories. And Saturn has us questioning those stories and maybe even paring some of those down. So it can be a time where we can feel deflated when it comes to our hope or what we believe in, but it's a necessary deflation, so it can be more true. It's, or even look at it like a library. We have just way too many books in there that don't, some of them they aren't descriptive of what's real or true anymore. And so we go through and we pull all those off the shelf. You have Saturn in the 5th. Saturn squares the Sun and the Moon. So that is a difficult place for Saturn to be, because Saturn is about contraction. The 5th is about expansion. But it can make you more careful and more concerned about the long term in an area of life where we usually suffer from hedonism. So it can have its place in the 5th. It can make things, definitely more serious when it comes to what we're gonna romance or date or have flings with. Makes us less promiscuous. But it's squaring the Sun and the Moon is talking about a lesson there and believing in yourself with the square to the Sun. And with the square to the Moon, emotional unavailability or being closed off, or getting into relationships or we settle for less because at least we have some kind of transactional back and forth, but we may not know what love really is. So we're breaking down a wall of invulnerability with that particular square. And we can feel very isolated in the relationships that may, be good on paper, check off all the boxes, but they may lack emotional understanding, emotional connectivity, emotional safety. Yeah, for me, no way. That's the one thing I want more than anything. And now that I'm healed, it's easy. It's easy to do. Emotionally connecting, if it's a safe connection. If it's not, you have every reason to feel anxiety. You can't make an unsafe connection safe, even if you're healed. Jessica, Mars square Pluto in composite with Pluto square ascendant. Ooh, Mars opposite ascendant and conjunct Saturn with positive Sun Jupiter, Jupiter Saturn, happy Moon Mars trine. So Moon Mars sounds okay. Mars square Pluto is always going to be an issue. You want to look at the natals. Do we have the Sun Pluto, Mars Pluto aspects in the natals? And then this is showing up. Why is this there? What is the math behind this? If we don't have Plutonic people that are making this up, if we don't have two Plutonic natal charts, this can go infinitely easier. If we do have one or both people that are dealing with Pluto, that have Pluto in aspect to their personal planets, Mars-Pluto squares are really, really difficult to negotiate in composite charts because they can bring out the worst in us in terms of our competition against each other. We feel like the other person is trying to rub us out or control us in some way. We don't like the way that they see us or measure us or respond to us or validate us. And so we respond to them in the way that we don't like that they just did to us. And so it's this circle of disrespect and being easily offended by each other. If we come into the relationship healed, first of all, that would be really unlikely that square would even be there, that we would even attract a dynamic to us where there was a high degree of competition. But if we do come into the relationship healed, that's going to be easier to negotiate if it is there, because we're going to be on each other's side. So we have to really commit ourselves to being on the same team. And when we do feel those competitive urges or those feelings that have us just wanting to do this to the other person because we feel like they just did it to us, we have to remind ourselves that, hey, I want to be happy. I don't want to win. I don't need to prove myself. The more that I think that I need to prove myself and I act in that way, the more the other person sees me in the way that I just didn't like them seeing me, and that's why I thought I had to prove myself. It's just this terrible, terrible cycle. So one of you has to decide that you're gonna stop trying to win, and that sets a new model. It's a new what is the word? I'm really tired and hungry. I'm running out of words. It's the new paradigm in the relationship. You can do that with that square. It's harder to do with the opposition, but you can model better behavior that the other person will then adopt pretty easily with that square, because then they'll see it as, oh, is this what we're doing now? Oh, we're being respectful, are we? Well, I could be more respectful than you are. You want to see some respect? I'll show you some goddamn respect. I'm being so respectful. Look how respectful I am. I'm more respectful than you are. So you can actually turn that itch to compete to something that's positive. But you have to be the one that models that first. You have to be the one that, shows up with the breakfast in bed for the one person. Then they're like, oh, is that what we're doing now? We're bringing each other breakfast in bed. Wow. You brought me eggs. I'll bring you crepes. Yeah. How do you like that? How do you like them crepes? So, start modeling the behavior you would like to see. It works pretty quickly. The other aspects sound really good. Crepes sound really good. Maybe I'll make crepes tonight. I have that yummy lingonberry jam. No, I think I'll make vegetable soup. It's raining today. It's cold and gray and rainy. It's a soup day. Okay. So I think that's all the questions I've got here. Did I miss anybody? Yeah, let me at the bottom. Take one more look here. All right, guys. Oh, one more. Joelle. You have transiting Uranus squared to Saturn. So Uranus is working on Saturn. Saturn is the boundary, the structure, what we know through empirical evidence. And then Uranus is dislodging all of that. See, Neptune pours a solvent on it when Neptune transits Saturn. But Uranus takes a stick and puts it underneath, or crowbar, puts it underneath the rock of Saturn and uses all this energy to dislodge it and move it out of the way. And so there's that feeling, there's this building tension, something's got to give. That's what it is. It's that feeling like something's got to give. And over the course of that transit, the crowbar gets deeper into the ground and farther into the rock. Then we start asserting more and more energy, more and more energy, more and more energy, until finally we get to the middle of that transit and we're like, I don't care anymore. I used to care about this. Now I don't. Because we're at the end of our rope. So that is a transit that will push us to the limit of our patience and then a bit further past that. So we can see who we really are. What do we do under pressure? And what kind of structures need to be dislodged? Because Saturn resists Uranus. Uranus is progress. Saturn is what we're committed to and what we've always been doing. We don't want to change that. And those are scary transits, Uranus to Saturn. Because sometimes we're not on all levels ready to obliterate or move from or renegotiate or leave entirely whatever commitments that we've made. whatever we poured ourselves into over the course of time. What have we been working towards? We may not want that to end, but there's a part of us, the Uranian part of us, the part that wants freedom, progress, growth, something different. It wins. And so we have the new version of us coming up against the old version of us. And it takes us a while to give up. But we do. Uranus always wins. So decide, what are you committed to that is too binding now? Maybe it used to work, but now it doesn't anymore, and it can be embarrassing to give those things up. Sometimes we can look unreliable, immature, wishy-washy, but you have to accept that. And you have to pay that price. Not everybody's going to approve of you or like you if you're going to be free. That's what you have to accept with those Uranus-Saturn transits. So that's what I got, guys. All right. I am going to make some dinner. I might I probably will pop into Instagram when I'm done with dinner. Or maybe I'll make dinner on Instagram and kill two birds with one stone. We'll see.